Let me ask you something honest. When was the last time you actually felt celebrated on your birthday? Remember when you were 7? The way your stomach would flutter the night before, counting down the hours until everyone would sing to you. The way it felt like the whole world paused just to notice you existed. Now fast forward to last year. The same date came and went, but it feels hollow. You kept your calendar clear. You told people, I don't really do birthdays. You said, it's just another day. But is it really just indifference? Because underneath that calm dismissal, underneath that practiced nonchalance, there's often a quiet story. People who treat birthdays like normal days aren't bitter, cynical, or emotionally detached. In fact, often they're the most emotionally attuned ones, the ones who learned somewhere along the way that expectations are architecture for disappointment. Psychologically, skipping your birthday is a kind of emotional seatbelt. It reflects not a lack of caring, but a surplus of self-preservation, a decision to protect yourself from the sting of unmet hopes before they even form. Now, fast forward to last year. The same date came and went, but it feels hollow. You kept your calendar clear. You told people, I don't really do birthdays. You said, it's just another day. But is it really just indifference? Because underneath that calm dismissal, underneath that practiced nonchalance, there's often a quiet story. People who treat birthdays like normal days aren't bitter, cynical, or emotionally detached. In fact, often they're the most emotionally attuned ones, the ones who learned somewhere along the way that expectations are architecture for disappointment. Psychologically, skipping your birthday is a kind of emotional seatbelt. It reflects not a lack of caring, but a surplus of self-preservation, a decision to protect yourself from the sting of unmet hopes before they even form. But here's where it gets interesting. Psychologists call this anticipatory disappointment management. It's when your brain learns to flatten your expectations before reality can crush them. When we've been let down enough times, forgotten, half-celebrated, or met with performative enthusiasm, the brain begins to preemptively lower the stakes. This often develops in people who experienced celebration inconsistency as children. Maybe there was one birthday where everyone promised to show up and only 2 people came. Or maybe your parents went through the motions, but you could feel the emotional absence behind the cake and candles. So instead of hoping people will remember, they remind themselves it doesn't matter. It's protection disguised as maturity. And while that might sound like giving up, it's actually a form of emotional risk management. The brain prioritizes predictable calm over the possibility of joy, when that possibility has often led to quiet humiliation. And that's okay. That's human. There's another layer to this. Psychologists call this preemptive self-sufficiency. It's when you convince yourself you don't need external recognition because needing it once made you feel powerless. When we crave validation and don't receive it, the brain begins to recalibrate what needing looks like. It starts to feel dangerous, childish, weak. This often develops in people who were praised inconsistently or conditionally. Maybe affection came only when you achieved something, not just for existing. Or maybe you watched someone else get celebrated while you stood in the background, learning that visibility equals vulnerability. So instead of asking to be seen, they disappear quietly. It's protection disguised as independence. And while that might sound like detachment, it's actually a form of self-reliance built under pressure. The brain prioritizes internal validation over external approval, when external approval has often been conditional or absent. That's not weakness, that's strategic adaptation. Here's the twist. Psychologists call this existential inventory. It's when birthdays become uncomfortable markers of the gap between who you wanted to be and who you actually are. When we're young, Birthdays feel like milestones of potential, but as we age, the brain begins to measure them as accountability checkpoints, and sometimes we don't like what we see. This often develops in people who internalized high expectations early. Maybe you told yourself, by 30 I'll have it all figured out, and 30 came and went with more questions than answers. Or maybe you look around at everyone celebrating their wins while you're still rebuilding from your losses. So instead of marking another year, they let it pass unnoticed. It's protection, disguised as humility. And while that might sound like self-criticism, it's actually a form of reflective honesty. The brain prioritizes quiet self-assessment over forced celebration when celebration feels dishonest or premature. There's nothing wrong with needing time to grow at your own pace. But over time, that same temporal awareness can quietly become a prison. The mind that once protected you from false celebration becomes a little too skilled at diminishing real progress.
What makes this fascinating is what psychologists call learned emotional distance. It's when you stop investing emotionally in events that require other people's participation because participation has proven unreliable. When we depend on others to make something special and they fail us, the brain begins to withdraw investment, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. This often develops in people who felt invisible in rooms full of people. Maybe you threw yourself a party once and spent the night managing everyone else's comfort while no one asked about yours. Or maybe the people who were supposed to show up for you consistently showed up late, distracted, or not at all. So instead of creating expectations, they create distance. It's protection disguised as low-maintenance living. And while that might sound like isolation, it's actually a form of boundary setting after repeated boundary violations. The brain prioritizes emotional safety over social connection, when social connection has often felt conditional or performative. That's not coldness, that's self-respect learned the hard way. Think about how many people say, "I don't care about my birthday," but later they quietly check their phone, noticing who texted, who didn't, who remembered without being reminded. We all do it, even the ones who claim they don't care, because caring is human. Even pretending not to care is a form of caring, just inverted, compressed, hidden under a shell of composure. Their mind doesn't just dismiss the day, it actively manages the emotional landscape around it. The preemptive texts saying, "Please don't make a big deal," the casual mention that it's coming up so others don't feel guilty for forgetting, the quiet logging of who remembered versus who had to be told. They detect the emotional temperature of every interaction. And while this sensitivity makes them incredibly attuned to others, it also makes them exhausted by their own awareness. And that's okay. That's human. Here's what happens beneath the surface. When you treat your birthday like a normal day, your mind internalizes a message. Wanting celebration means you're needy. Needing recognition means you're weak. You learn to become smaller in moments designed for visibility. You become the person who manages everyone else's comfort at gatherings meant for you. And over time, being celebrated starts to feel like exposure. You're not even sure if you actually don't want it or if you've just convinced yourself not to want it. It feels safer that way. But the truth is that avoiding your birthday isn't indifference. It's hypersensitivity wrapped in armor. Deep down, many of these people still crave being seen, but not in the performative public way. They don't want a room full of acquaintances singing while they sit frozen under attention. They want one person to text them something that proves they actually know them, not just their birthday, but them, because that's the paradox of emotional self-protection. The more self-sufficient you become, the harder it feels to admit you still want connection without feeling pathetic. So birthdays become loaded terrain, places where vulnerability would normally surface, but gets replaced by dismissive jokes and "it's just another day" deflections. You can be completely comfortable alone and still hope someone reaches out with intention. You can be fiercely independent and still ache for someone to care without being asked. And that's okay. That's human. Because no matter how convincingly you've built a life that doesn't need external validation, we never outgrow the need for genuine recognition. We just get better at hiding it. They want relationships that allow them to be quietly known without performing gratitude. They want people who understand that loving them doesn't require grand gestures or public displays. They want presence without pressure. And deep down, they hope to find someone who can see through the "I don't need anything" exterior and say, "I see you anyway." They crave emotional accuracy more than anything else. Freedom to be ambivalent, to feel small on a day they're supposed to feel big, to admit they're tired of pretending not to measure who shows up in ways that don't require justification.
So your birthday becomes a subtle test. Not one you announce, but one your mind quietly observes. Who remembers without a Facebook reminder? Who reaches out with something specific, not generic? Who makes you feel less alone in your own discomfort with being celebrated? And even if you tell yourself it doesn't matter, a small part of you still checks. That's not weakness. That's humanity. There's also something poetic about these people. Their emotional vocabularies run deep. Their internal landscapes wander into places many never visit. They find meaning in the unspoken moments between words, beauty in the ordinary rhythm of a quiet Tuesday, comfort in solitude that doesn't require explanation. They observe before they speak. They listen before they react. They feel before they decide. And while the world often rewards volume and visibility, they are powered by precision and depth. Their silence is not a lack of presence. It's the presence of careful thought, of words being weighed before release. Their distance is not coldness, but a boundary drawn by someone who's learned what it costs to dissolve too easily into others. Their reluctance to celebrate themselves is not low self-worth, but a resistance to the performance of joy they don't genuinely feel. When someone treats their birthday like a normal day, they're not rejecting celebration, they're protecting something tender. Somewhere along the road, we all start to learn that the things which once made us feel seen, the surprise party, the carefully chosen gift, the heartfelt card, begin to lose their glow when they arrive inconsistently or with conditions or not at all. What starts to matter more is constancy. Who stays when the candles aren't lit? Who remembers you when there's no reason to? Who sees you on the unremarkable days? Some people learned that excitement meant eventual disappointment. Others learned that expressing needs meant being dismissed as too much. Some were forgotten on the days they hoped most to be remembered. Others were celebrated publicly but felt privately unseen. Over time, these small emotional injuries accumulate, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, persistent way, like water carving a riverbed through stone, imperceptible in a single moment, undeniable over years. And without even realizing it, they begin to associate birthdays with the ache of unmet expectations, rather than the warmth of being known. So when someone says, "I don't do birthdays," it's not apathy, it's evolved emotional intelligence. They've replaced the fragile hope of being celebrated with something steady: self-reliance, internal validation, peace in the unremarkable. And while that might look like giving up, it's actually growing up, learning to find stability in what you can control when what you couldn't control kept hurting you. But even in that protective state, there's an echo, a quiet voice that says, maybe it would be nice if someone remembered. That's the paradox of emotional evolution. You can be grounded in your independence and still long for someone to reach out. You can be at peace with solitude and still desire to be thought of. and that's okay. That's human. Because treating your birthday like a normal day doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've learned that peace is worth more than the chaos of unmet expectations. It's the softest kind of celebration, invisible but real. And yet, beneath all of this, there exists an unspoken hope, a hope that one day someone will remember without being reminded, a hope that someone will reach out not because they're supposed to, but because they genuinely thought of you, a hope that the right person will send a message that isn't generic but specific, proof that they know you, see you, remember the small things you've shared. A hope that the right person will understand that their quiet dismissal is a form of self-protection, not indifference. And slowly, when the right connection enters their life, something begins to shift. The weight of managing everyone's expectations feels a little less exhausting. The fear of being forgotten feels a little less consuming. The armor becomes lighter. They begin to share their needs more freely, express their desires more openly, admit their longings more honestly. Their inner world, once carefully guarded, becomes a place they allow someone else to witness.
That is the true psychology behind people who treat their birthday like a normal day. It is not coldness. It is profound sensitivity, learning to survive. It is not apathy. It is caring so much that caring became dangerous. It is not rejection of celebration. It is a redefinition of what celebration can look like when the traditional version has caused pain. So if you see yourself in this, know that you don't have to perform joy you don't feel. Maybe that's not something to fix. Maybe it's something to honor. Because what you're really saying is, I value constancy over spectacle. I value depth over performance. I value being known over being celebrated. That's not avoidance, that's wisdom in disguise. But at the same time, let yourself be soft. If you check your phone hoping someone remembered, it's okay to feel that too. Wanting to be thought of doesn't mean you've regressed. It means you're remembering the child who once believed birthdays were magic. And perhaps that's the greatest gift you can give yourself, to remember the version of you who once counted down the days, who believed that being celebrated meant you mattered. Because that child is still somewhere inside you, waiting not for a party, but for a whisper, waiting for you to say, hey, I see you. You're allowed to want this. That's the kind of celebration that doesn't fade. That's the kind that stays with you. So if your birthday ever feels like a loaded day, even when you insist it's not, don't feel guilty for it. It's not weakness. It's your heart remembering what it once hoped for. It's the mind learning that protection sometimes means letting go of the very thing you wanted most. And yet, in the quiet, if someone remembers you with intention, let them. Let them remind you that you're seen. Let them remind you that you matter, because you do, even on the days that feel ordinary, even when you insist it's just another day, especially then. Because maybe that's the most beautiful thing about growing older, learning that mattering doesn't require fanfare. Sometimes it just needs a moment of stillness, a deep breath, a quiet acknowledgement that you're here, you've survived another year, and that, in itself, is worth something. You don't have to throw yourself a party to prove you matter. You already are someone worth celebrating. Someone whose depth runs deeper than most will ever see, whose sensitivity has been mistaken for coldness, whose protection has been mistaken for indifference. And that's worth celebrating. Quietly or not. Every single year.